Hey everyone, it's Jamie from Infinite Street Tarot and Seasons and Ritual, and I'm here on the Tintin portal. I was hoping to come on yesterday when Jupiter was stationing retrograde, but the day just got away from me. So I was like, well, Tintin portal's pretty good too, so we'll do it on today. And then tomorrow is Pluto stations direct. So I'm sandwiched in between Jupiter going retrograde and Pluto stationing direct. So I think this is a good day to come on and just have a little chit chat about. I feel like the energies that are going to be moving with us since Jupiter is going retrograde, the Tintin portal. I was thinking about it, if you do 1 + 0, you get one, and the number one card is the Magician in the tarot. So we can always work with that energy. I don't know if I can find it real fast. The Magician, oh, he's right here. Okay. The Magician knows he is the conduit between heaven and earth. He's always pointing to the sky, as above, so below. The Magician, you can see on his table, has all the tools he needs. I should say all the tools they need. It's a whatever magician. We are all the magician, no matter what. So the Magician has all the tools they need in order to manifest the life they want. You can see they have the I can start saying she has the uh infinity symbol above their head. And this is signaling to us, this is just part of our life journey. This is what we signed up for. This is us moving into a new energy on this path of the infinity symbol that is constantly moving, right? If we think of the infinity symbol, it goes on forever. And so where are we in the path of this infinity symbol? The energy is always moving. And so we're moving into a new energy. You see the roses all around, which is the alchemist's tool, correct? And then all the beautiful white lilies as well, signifying death and rebirth. The yellow, I always say, is the solar plexus chakra. Yellow is the sun, right? That is our inspiration. That is the fire that we need to keep going. And it's always important to understand, or I'll say, I believe that solar plexus is where we manifest from. Our sacral, which is orange, is where we create. So lots of red being grounded, lots of green, that's the heart chakra. Lots of blue, that's the throat chakra. So Tintin portal, let's work with this energy of the Magician and always know, because of the infinity symbol, right? Like, it doesn't matter when you watch this video, you can tap into this beautiful energy of the Magician, of the Tintin portal, of the number one at any time. So that being said, let's talk about Jupiter stationing retrograde yesterday. So a couple things about Jupiter and how I'm reading this retrograde. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is fire. Sagittarius is mutable fire, which we just talked about fire, I guess, a little bit right there. And Jupiter is the biggest planet in our solar system, and Jupiter in astrology represents gift, luck, faith, belief, expansion. So I always tell my sweet Sagittarius friends that make sure you don't overcommit, right? Like, don't make sure you don't say, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. And then all of a sudden you've overcommitted and then you hate humanity, right? Um, so right now, Jupiter will be going retrograde. And to me, in Gemini. And so let's talk a little bit about Gemini. Gemini is the twins. Gemini is air, and Gemini is mutable air. So we have two mutable planets, right? Gemini takes us from spring into summer, and Sagittarius takes us from fall into winter. So this is giving us a lot of time, or a lot of energy to maneuver, right? A lot of energy to put things that were this way, make them that way, right? A lot of energy to work with this magician energy. Um, The good news is that I cannot believe this. I don't know, you guys can't see this, but somewhere in my backyard, it's like someone's using a chainsaw. So I've got to really focus here. Talk about Gemini, right? Duality. So with Jupiter, I'm sorry about that. So you guys, okay, coming back. So Gemini is the twins. Gemini wants information, and Gemini was always seen as duality. And I was watching this video the other day. It was really interesting. It was a Buddhist monk, and he was talking about duality ends when we experience something and we don't want to keep repeating it. And I thought, wow, okay, that makes sense. And for a long time, I've been talking about Gemini being the end of duality, right? Because just the way that this planet has been set up or the way that we keep moving it, we only understand what we want after we get what we don't want, correct? And so, while that is true, in a sense, the idea is though that once we start focusing more on what we want, right? We want, let's just say, okay, let's say we want like abundance, we want joy, we want peace, right? Because we understand what it means to experience the opposite of that, right? And so Jupiter is going to retrograde in Gemini. And so when planets usually retrograde, we talk about that's going kind of within and taking a look at ourselves. So when we start taking a look at ourselves, it's to me, this is really talking about picking a lane, if you will. Jupiter is going to be retrograde for 4 months. It doesn't turn to direct until February 2025. And so this is really going to start asking us to pick a lane, right? Because once you pick a lane with Gemini, Gemini will start, the twins will start giving you all the information you need to keep making choices, right? To keep you on that path. Now, the thing is, if you don't like the path, you can always switch. Okay, this doesn't mean you're fated, right? We're getting rid of the word fated. But is this idea like I tried this for a while, I looked around, I really saw what was going on. I didn't like it. So I decided to change the path. So there will be a lot of changing the path in the next 4 months. There's going to be a lot of this is the path that I picked, and it's going to be like a really deep exploration of this path. I feel like, lower Gemini is gossipy, is gossipy. I always say talking out of both sides of your mouth. So if that has been happening, this is really going to either show where people have been doing that, maybe show yourself where you have been doing that. Maybe you've been presenting, and not in a mean way, or, not like in a diabolical way, but presenting and thinking like, oh, I'm always going to do that. This is what I believe. This is what I talk about. But like, you're not doing it. Jupiter is going to start showing that in Gemini. And so you've got to decide, am I going to put my money or put my mouth where my money is, or my mouth where my money, you know what I'm saying? And then show up that way, because people are tired of being screamed at by people who haven't experienced it, haven't lived it, don't know anything about it, aren't real, okay, for starters. Bots, I'm talking to all of you. And people really want to get back to, I'm going to say, I feel like the collective really wants to get back to things that work, that benefit people, benefit all, right? Those are some of those Aquarian themes. Um, And also, I want to say it's really important to me that we start looking to see where the moon and Venus is when these things happen. So before in astrology, we were always extremely focused on where the sun and Mars was. But I think moving forward, we're really going to start focusing on to where the moon and Venus is, because this feminine energy is so prominent on the planet now. So the moon was in Capricorn when Jupiter is stationed, and Venus is still in Scorpio. And so again, this goes back to me, like the way we work, how we want to work, how we want to work on ourselves, how we want to work with others, how we want to work with spirit, how we want to work with science, how we want to work with our pets. But really going into how we want to work. We want to work so we feel that things are making sense, people are benefiting from this, we're benefiting. Or do we want to keep going in that realm of not sure. I don't know why I'm showing up. I believed at this in one time and now I've got all this other like misinformation coming in or something else coming in. Jupiter in Gemini is really going to kind of plow through those themes, right? What's interesting is that Gemini or Jupiter will be sextiling Chiron, who's in Aries. Okay. So both are at 21 degrees. And Chiron, if you remember, is known as the wounded healer, but we refer to him now as the great healer. And so Chiron usually talks about this wound that we have in us that we sometimes get really self-conscious about or think that's the reason why I'm not succeeding, right? But the idea is that working with that wound, we start to understand it and start to see like, was that my wound or was that something someone put on top of me or said this about me? And for some reason, I couldn't let it go. And it's been defining me ever since. So, because Chiron, when you look at the mythology of Chiron, he was rejected by his parents, but he was raised in a loving environment, right, through his foster family. And he became a great healer. He knew how to use all the plants on the planet, and he healed people. And then he, unfortunately, which is a great fable for Libra season, he didn't want to hurt the other centaur's feelings, who wanted to drink wine when he had Hercules, was it Hercules over? I can't remember, but I think it was Hercules. He had the poison dipped arrows in order to kill, I believe, the Hydra. I could be wrong. And anyway, the centaurs, he didn't want to hurt their feelings because they were all over for dinner. He really didn't want to give them wine because he knew they kind of get wild. They did, and they shot him in the ass with the, the poison dart, and he died. Okay, 3 days later. And so, the mythology was he could heal the whole world but himself, right? This fucking bullshit patriarchy. Oh no, what happened to my theme? So, I don't know what happened. You guys, what is happening? I don't know. This theme, so we'll just have to go with less light. Um, Theme where you're never going to get ahead. It doesn't matter how much you know. It's always going to bite you in the ass. When honestly, if he just stood up for himself and was like, wine's not a good time right now at this function because I've got poison arrows laying all around. And I know you guys usually get wild. And then he would still be alive, right? And so it goes back to this whole idea of what is the story? What is the storyline? Maybe the storyline was, with what you're dealing with, I did need to stick up for myself, or I need to listen to myself, or plenty of people go through this too, and they turn out just fine, right? But it's going through having like this belief, right? Working with Jupiter, faith that things are turning around, things are moving differently, even though you might not see it on the surface right away, or maybe what's being mirrored to you still seems like the same, but you feel different. I can tell you for this on this 1010 portal, I do feel a lot of relief, which I feel it's very interesting. I was just kind of tapping into the energies, and there is some sense of relief that I feel like that's coming into the planet. And I do feel like it's because, I am moving more towards things can be gentle and not so rough. The reality of it is life is life. We're going to have things that are hard. We're going to have things that are, mean, all those things. But if we want to kind of work with ourselves in a gentler way, we can focus on that, right? And so I feel like in a gentler way, we are starting to see where those rough edges are and we can smooth them, right? And I feel like Jupiter, who has a 12-year orbit, so he'll be back in Gemini in 12 years, right? So let him to enjoy his time in Gemini. Okay, let him to have some fun with the twins. Um, but is really sitting in there and sitting with us, right? We don't have to make that split decision, right? We have 4 months to kind of see like, oh, let's move things around, even if suddenly there's big changes happen quickly, you know? But we have these 4 months to work with with Jupiter in retrograde. And Chiron will be with Jupiter for 6 weeks, right? So again, working with this idea of, if you want to talk with the twins and be like, why did I always think this? Okay, you've got 6 weeks to work with this pretty intensely. Um, and then you can work on a thing, well, like, I don't want this to be my story anymore. Okay, well, how can I work with that too? Gemini is going to help you get those answers. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So there's lots of ways that we can work with this energy in order to get the answers that we need in order to let things go. We don't need to bring with us anymore. Um, lots of ways to work with places where we saw maybe that we were showing up one way, but actually doing the opposite. Has that been good for us? Has that been good for our psyche? And the idea is it's not like a right or wrong, right? It is, how does it make you feel? Do you want to keep living with this? Is this something you can sustain? Is it something you can maintain? Um, right? Because Jupiter expands things. So if, you were presenting thing one way and expanding it, but it was a complete sham, this is the time you're going to have to answer for it. That's just kind of where we are. At the same time, if there were things that you could have, not that you could have done, but you felt like you had a really good solution or a really good answer, but it never seemed to make it out, right, into the public or into the cosmos, this is a really good time, right, for you to sit with that and say, well, why wasn't this coming out? What could I do differently? Is there a different way to present this? Do I need to start smaller, right? Because Jupiter is retrograde. Do I need to start smaller in order to get a different kind of buzz around it in order to help the people that need to be helped, right? There is a lot of good energy with this. Um, mm, but er, but it's important to work with that Chiron wound for the next 6 weeks. Um, and talk to it and soothe it and understand that it doesn't have to be a wound any longer. It doesn't mean if it comes up, you might switch, but it's like, oh, let me work with this in order to heal it. I mean, we all have scars, but they're all healed, right? They're healed. I mean, you might be still be able to see it. Um, but a lot of times with scars, once they heal, you know, they heal. And that's another thing. We have to be okay with things healing and we have to be okay with things moving on. And we have to be okay with saying like, uh, yeah, that was a bad decision to try to jump over that fence, right? Ugh, okay. Maybe I'll be a little more cautious or jump a little bit higher. I don't know, right? It's up to you. But the idea of working with this energy of Jupiter retrograde in Gemini is here to help us. It's here to help us get stronger. It's here to help us work within ourselves differently. That's that moon in Capricorn. It is here to help us see our self-worth. That's Venus in Scorpio. She's still in Scorpio, right? She's taking that deep dive. She's taking herself, Venus's self-worth. She's going down to Scorpio, who's fixed water, right? That fixed energy is a beautiful energy when we want to change things and transmute things and transform things because we can go where we know the energy is going to be solid. And it's great that we can work with this within this mutable energy of Gemini and the planet Jupiter, right, who rules Sagittarius. It is also mutable. And so we take that part where we're like insecure or however we feel about it, and she's taking it to the bottom of Scorpio. And she's like, we need to fix this because if this is the bullshit that's keeping me from my self-worth, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not playing around. I need some transformation. I need some transmutation. And that's what's happening. So yeah, it might be a little uncomfortable, or yeah, you might have to revisit something, but it doesn't mean you have to revisit it for the next 4 months. You don't have to revisit for the next how many years of your life. It's up to you to decide because we have so many modalities now that help us. It's just besides talk therapy that we can move through these things if we're okay with letting them go, if we're okay with forgiving ourselves. I always say we forgive ourselves first. Um, and if we can give forgiveness to the other, then we can pass it on. But it's more important to forgive ourselves and work with healing ourselves and soothing ourselves, right? Instead of always focusing on the other. Okay, I forgive you. I forget, okay, that's a lot, especially with when different things happen. So working with Gemini, right? Being in retrograde, working with the twins and speaking, it's ruled by Mercury, how to heal the self. And if we can really believe in that and have faith in that, um, we're going to come out on the other side totally different in such a beautiful way. Aries, right? Chiron is in Aries, and in Aries is the self. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, right? So we have Venus, which represents our self-worth, taking all these feelings into that deep dive of Scorpio. And then that Chiron in Aries is really saying, like, hey, you guys, we've got to move through this, right? We've got to start showing up as our authentic self. We've got a lot of support around us. You can start it today. You can start it tomorrow. You can start it in 4 months. You've got 6 weeks coming up. And when I say it's sextiling Chiron for the next 6 weeks, it doesn't mean you're going to constantly be kicked in the nuts for the next 6 weeks. I know that's great for a lot of astrologers to say that because um, I don't know. I mean, I do know in the sense like it's always like, oh, what's bad, right? Because we want to glom onto this bad energy. But there's so much new good energy on the planet right now that it's important that we start reaching to that and bringing it in because I mean, all the energy, there's just a lot of good energy coming on the planet right now. And the more that we can bring that in and metabolize it, the better we're going to be moving forward, right? Is life hard? Sure. Do bad things happen? Yes. Okay. But if they're not happening to you, it's best for you to sit in this beautiful energy and magnify it so others that are going through a hard time can reach onto it, right? Like when you send that wave, it's like, and then someone on the other side's like, I need some good vibes. They're going to pick up on that good vibe, whether they know you personally or not. That's kind of how energy works, right? So maybe work with this idea too of the idea of duality ends when we decide we don't want to keep doing the things that hurt us and however that looks to you. What's really interesting is at the end of the 6 weeks, Jupiter and Chiron will be at the point where we had the solar eclipse on April 8th, right? Which was that ending and beginning, right? That eclipse energy. So I think that's really beautiful. That's going back. So if we were working with Aries at that time, because that's where the sun was, and we said, okay, I got to show up as my authentic self. And this Chiron is sextiling Jupiter for these 6 weeks. And when they get to the end, it's back at that degree point of our solar eclipse on April 8th. That's a huge signal to me, anyway, that, yeah, we are coming. We're coming back to that beginning, right? We're coming back to this idea we can be who we know who we are, right? Our soul knows who we are, and we can keep moving forward through that. So these next 6 weeks, you guys, really work with this. Really work with this energy that's here to help us, to help move us. This would be a good time to start journaling. I know I say that. Do I do it every day? No. Okay. But I think to myself, this is a good time. So maybe this is me, right? Talking, you should do this, but I'm not doing it. So maybe this is the day. Okay, we'll keep up. This will be me. We'll keep up with the idea if I'm journaling every day when I'm asking you guys to journal. Okay, good. Accountability partners. Here we go. So okay, so I feel pretty good talking about the Jupiter retrograde in Gemini for the next 4 months. And I feel pretty good that we covered the importance of it sextiling Chiron, yeah, Chiron for the next 6 weeks. So 4 months and 6 weeks. Perfect. So the cards that we pulled with this is the Queen of Swords. And again, I know I'm recapping this. It's important to remember the moon was in Capricorn when Jupiter stationed, and to me, that's working differently. And then Venus is still in Scorpio, and that is going down with our feelings to show us what our self-worth is. Okay. So the two cards we pulled with this is the Queen of Swords, and the Queen of Swords is a beautiful energy for this because the Queen of Swords doesn't want any drama, right? She's over the drama. Okay, she's seeing through it. She's got that big sword. She's got her hand out. She's like, bring it because mama ain't got time for it. So she's cutting through all the drama. I always love that they have the butterfly on her and the king have the butterfly on their thrones because it is about the metamorphosis, right? It is about change. It is about changing your mind, right? Sword energy is usually mental energy. It is about changing your mind, and it's okay. And you can see like her beautiful cape is of the clouds, right? It's the sky and the clouds, right? And so it is working with all the elements of, fire, steam, um, earth, right? So you guys, using this, just start cutting out all the drama. It's okay to say, no, I'm not listening to this because I don't have time. Like, let's just get an answer and see. One of my friends that I help with his check called me yesterday and he wanted to bring something out. And I was like, I don't have time for this today, buddy. Like, I love you, but I don't have time to waste time talking about things that either aren't real or can be answered with a phone call. So work with this energy, this Queen of Swords. She's here. Because what's beautiful is then we have the Seven of Cups. And I love the Seven of Cups card. People always make it real scary, but to me, the Seven of Cups is like, okay, what's coming in? You get to choose what you love, right? Cups is love, cups is creativity. He's got 7 choices. Choose what you love at the time. Choose what you want to do. Do you want to keep talking about this here snake, the snaky poo, or do you want to cut it out? All right. Do you want to talk about this here victory, right? And how you got there because you were cutting out all the bullshit? I like snakes, so snakes can be knowledge, right? So work with this. The more that we trim the drama, the more that we see through the illusion, the more we get to choose what we love, right? The more we get to see things clearly, right? And we get to pick with our heart, think with our heart, feel with our heart, instead of always being in the head. Okay, that feels pretty good. We had a little bit of a rough start. My light went out. Did it blow up? I don't know. I got it off Amazon, you guys. I liked it, but maybe we need a new one. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Pluto stationing direct. Let's maybe take a little drink of coffee, maybe get a little water, maybe get some snacks. This has been a marathon so far. Okay, Pluto is stationing direct tomorrow on the 11th, which I love the 11th. That's a good portal. I love the number one. It's a number one day today. And Pluto, which this is so funny because the other day when I was thinking about Pluto stationing direct, what came to me was the music of the Queen's funeral, which I just thought was very beautiful. I don't know what that says about me, but I was actually Googling to find what music she played as her casket rolled off to Westminster Abbey, right? And it was really beautiful. And if you guys could find it, I suggest you listen to a little bit because it's a beautiful, I guess, funeral march. Um, and so that was the music that kept coming up with Pluto stationing direct. And let's remember, it's stationing direct in the sign of Capricorn. It is at that indirect degree of 29 degrees. It's been in there since 2008, 2009. And one of the biggest changes that I I think that I work with when I think of Pluto turning direct is still this Saturn in Pisces, right? Saturn in Pisces is letting us see through the illusion and allowing us to have boundaries. And I was looking to see where the moon is going to be tomorrow when it stations, and the moon is going to be in Aquarius, and I can't make this up. And I thought that was really beautiful. And then Venus is still in Scorpio, right? And Venus is still holding that truth of us finding our authentic selves, it's really teaching us it's okay to love ourselves again. It's really okay to love ourselves again. It's really okay to be in this idea of love. It's okay to see what love means now, in different stages of our lives. And how we want to work with that. Getting out of this illusion that because Pluto rules Scorpio, right? And that's where Venus is. And getting out of this illusion that the only way we can show love is if is a very toxic way, right? And we're getting out of that. And you can fill in the blanks about what that means to you, toxicity when it comes to this idea of love. And because Pluto being in Capricorn since like 2008, 2009, without Saturn being in that Pisces energy, there was no boundaries, right? That's why the rich literally kept getting richer. I mean, this is the way I'm seeing it, right? There was this no idea that, we couldn't say no, we can't say, I got to take the day off or all this. It was just no boundaries. It was really quite awful. So now Pluto is stationing direct, cue the Queen's music for the last time, in our lifetime. Pluto will not be in Capricorn for our lifetime. It'll be back there in 200 some years. And Saturn is in Pisces, saying we can work differently, right? The moon is going to be in Aquarius, saying, yeah, you're about to move into Aquarius for the next 20 years. So let's start to intuit the way that we're going to talk about work with bring in these answers from the cosmos, bring in these answers of, answering these old problems with new ideas, which some of these ideas are still old ideas, but they need to be brought to the surface, right? They kept being buried because the ideas actually help the collective and not just the 1%. So these ideas that help the collective are going to come back. They're going to be presented. They're going to be presented, succinctly, easily for us to work with. And so, and Venus is there at the same time showing like you can speak up for yourself. You can. This is part of your self-worth. You are worthy to have clean drinking water because you exist, right? All these things. And it's a huge platform. So I'm not going to go down all these things, but it is this idea that Pluto is stationing direct in Capricorn. Capricorn in the Tarot is the Devil card. We don't have, and to me, the devil is the illusion. And so we're getting out of this illusion, right? We're getting out of this idea that if you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you work really hard, you're going to make it, when half these people didn't do that, right? That wasn't the story. They just kept the storyline, right? And, you know, could it be a little rocky? Could it be a little shaky? Could it be a little, yeah, at the same time, I think we've been working with this energy so long that, I mean, I'm not going to say be jaded and say nothing surprises me anymore, even though sometimes I feel like that. But I do feel like we have the tools we need. So when things come up, we can work with them. I also really, really feel like because Jupiter being in Gemini, going retrograde with Chiron, when this stuff comes up and we feel like we can't speak out, or we feel like, oh no, if I say this, what will somebody think of me? We're kind of to the point of, I don't fucking care. I need to talk about this, right? And in a loving way, in a healthy way, right? So it is finding our voice. It is speaking up. And again, remember, Moon in Aquarius. Aquarius is about the individual first and then the collective, right? So it's not saying everything that's going to come up and be said you're going to agree with, or you're going to be like right on. But the idea that, okay, that person can speak their truth just because I don't agree with it doesn't mean I have to, dox them in a sense, right? But this idea that the energy of truth will come out, the energy of, what's more helpful for the collective is going to be coming out, right? And so Pluto will be in at this anaretic degree until November 19th. So this is a lot of time that we're going to work with this energy of like, how can we move things forward? Um, what is the future, right? How can I show up with my authentic self? How can I work differently with my authentic self? Because it is Capricorn. But also maybe that is like the relief that I feel, maybe the relief that I'm feeling is because I know Pluto's turning direct and we can, we're finally going to move through this degree. Is it going to bring more challenges? Of course, but that's his Earth, right? This is Earth, right? Earth is full of challenges. It doesn't mean that um it has to be the worst. It doesn't mean like it can't be overcome. And I just think that's like a big energy too. Like things are going to be overcome. We need to have that faith, right? In Jupiter and Gemini, that things actually are changing, even if we don't see them right away. Um, Especially in an election year where we're hearing a lot of the same stuff, right, in America. So, but knowing you've got to look around you and see like the little bits that are moving, like people are forming different groups and talking differently about things and really calling the bullshit out that maybe they were kind of afraid to call out before. And again, maybe it's not in a huge spectacular sort of way, but like if you talk to someone and you're like, God, I kind of thought that, and they're like, yeah, me too, that makes you feel so much better. And so those kind of, I would like to say, like, I guess alliances are forming and in moving forward. So it's important to know that just because maybe people aren't saying the exact same thing you are or doing the exact same thing you are, but we're all moving towards the same energy, which is maybe a higher vibration. That's important. Allow people to show up how they are. If it's not hurting people, I think you guys should know that. Like it's not allowing people just to be hurtful or spreading disinformation, but it's the idea of your love language is this and someone else's love language is this, and you guys are still getting to the same um point, the same ending point, then be okay with that. If your love language is cooking and their love language is I don't know, fucking doing something, and then at the end of the day you guys are able to do and cook, then great, right? That's kind of mean that's what I mean. This idea of being fooled and disinformation it might hit a fever pitch, but it's also like us being like, that's not true. Um, that person has six fingers in that photo. Humans' faces don't look that. I think there was a picture of this girl. She looked really sad, and it, sort of looked real, but like the exaggerated, like was just so over the top that, you're like, that's an AI, right? So understanding like that's not how we want to work. We don't want to work in the illusion anymore. We don't want to work under this illusion that, oh, if I work, this much and do all this, I'm going to get all these riches and all this stuff when most of us have been. And we didn't get the riches, right? The 1% did. So move in these spheres of knowing like all of this is coming to an end, right? I always tell people we kind of jumped the shark. We really do have more than enough money in America to pay for everything. I don't, you know, even like globally, like we still have these old storylines of these people are bad and this is happening because those old storylines make us work a certain way. And hopefully it's going to start coming out like, this country's probably broke and that country's probably broke and they don't give a shit about us. But, we have to pretend they do in order to keep us working in a certain realm or the military industrial complex going, right? But, we'll see how that starts to come out differently in order for us to work differently, for us to survive. I mean, not survive, but to thrive. And everything can be beneficial and it's all going to be okay, right? Like this idea going back to duality, like one person makes it and one others doesn't. And the idea is like, well, we can all make it. It's just different levels of how we want to make it and what we feel comfortable doing. And I think that energy is going to start revving up pretty good here. Um, so it's important to really see and to embrace these changes. I can't stress enough that Saturn and Pisces is really holding the line for us so we can see through this illusion that had been there for so much for the last 20 years with Pluto and Capricorn. Um, and this is a lot of endings with soul contracts. So, and maybe that's another reason why I feel relief. Like, it's just like all these old soul contracts, we don't have to go forward anymore with them. Family contracts, friend contracts, whatever, soul contracts. Like, this is another karmic ending point that I know I do. So like readily accept. And with that, I have to accept the things that come along with it. And it's this idea of being brave, right? Mars and Cancer for the next 6 months. Being brave in my home, which is me, being brave in these emotions, showing that I can show up differently, right? I don't have to be that same story that everyone has been or wanted me to be or have, for the past, 40 something years. So um, we have a lot of cosmic support moving forward. And I'm sorry when you know, astrologers make it very sensational and say this is going to be tough and this is going to be so hard. No fucking shit, you guys. It's fucking life, like some days are fucking better than others. Just remember that, and um but it's more important for me to focus on the positive that's coming in because if we stay grounded and we can move through this, we really do see the changes. One last thing that I'm going to say, and this is just for October 13, it came up. Mercury will be entering Scorpio, which I think is good. And we have to remember Mercury rules Gemini. So where Jupiter just went retrograde. So Mercury entering Scorpio, right? The twins are really going to have that strong connection on how to transmute and um, transform things and really have a really deep conversation. Okay, how can we bring in this Phoenix energy of the rebirth, right? Because one of the many things of Scorpio is the Phoenix, right? There's a lot of them. And so Mercury moving into Scorpio on the 13th is really going to help us with these, 6 weeks working with Chiron, working with that wound that we don't ever have to carry around with us or feel responsible for, right? So I think that's really important. And Mars, who's in Cancer, will be squaring Chiron, who's in Aries, right? And so we have to remember Mars rules Aries. In the square to me is coming in and going to be asking us, how do we defend our home? Um, you know, when I think about Mars and Cancer, I'm always, thinking about Mars becoming more of this divine masculine energy, understanding accountability. But it's also still important to remember, like, even though I see Mars moving just from that god of war to the spiritual warrior, he still knows how to defend. And I really do feel like him being in Cancer for the next 6 months, and this just came to me today before I came on, is really about how we defend our home, how we defend ourselves, because we are our own home, but really how do we defend our home moving forward? And this is like a spiritual defense, okay? This isn't us going and buying guns and all that stuff. But really, the more we show up authentically and the more we trust our feelings, the more we trust our intuition, the more we're able to defend our home. And I think this is like a really powerful movement, and it's not going to stop, guys. It's not going to stop. So no matter when you watch this video, and hopefully you've watched it all the way through because we did have a little shaky beginning, and you get to this point, but this is for us to remember our own strength and where it comes from. And sometimes it does, and I know I say, but sometimes it does come from the divine. I would think all the time it does, but um, in us really being okay, moving through all those emotions with that, because we had the eclipse in Libra. Libra is a cardinal sign. Cancer is a cardinal sign, right? So it is about this movement. Capricorn is a cardinal sign. So it is about this movement. It is really about this rebirth. It's really about us showing up differently, moving forward. And I try to keep this energy as light as possible and as easy as possible because, breaking everything down sometimes gets a little muddied, even though when I'm looking at this stuff. So the energy moving forward is really good. Jupiter going retrograde for the next 4 months is going to be really good. We get to figure out how we're going to speak differently. We get to figure out if we're going to journal every day, and if we're not going to talk about it, right? Or if we're going to journal every other day, then we can talk about it, right? We're going to talk about how I want to defend my home. How do I want to have clean air, clean water, right? But also out of toxic relationships, out of toxic, the media, social media, all these things. It is really this new um, information, this new energy, this new wave, like this higher vibration coming in. So you guys work with it every day. Try to stay patient and compassionate with this, right? Because we're all moving through this together. Be happy when you start to think about things differently. Be happy when you have a different question to ask and you're finally brave enough to stand up and ask that question, right? You're finally brave enough to say to somebody, hey, I really like you and this is how I feel. And if they're like, yeah, okay, let's do this, then you have to work out the differences from those old relationships that didn't work if you want to be in this new relationship, right? At the same time, understanding if someone's like, I understand this, but I'm not there with you. You don't take it like you're a piece of shit. It's just like, okay, that person's not there. Maybe they're still working on things. Maybe they still have a lot of trauma they want to deal with. Maybe they don't like my fucking haircut, whatever, but it's them. It's not you, right? In the sense that I mean, obviously if you are have, abuse, if you're abusing people, then it is you. Okay. But I think you guys were on the same page when it's like understanding, meeting up with people where they are. And if you want to get a new result, we have to talk about things differently. We have to let those old things go in the sense that we learned from them and we don't want to repeat them, but also meeting people where they are, really listening to them, really seeing for who they are now. All of this energy, it starts to mesh, it starts to gel, but it is energy, right? So allow it to flow. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna pull one card, which would kind of be two, for this Pluto stationing direct, right? And so us working with Pluto until it moves into Aquarius on the 19th. It's so exciting. I can hear it. Ooh, this card did not disappoint. Oh, wow. Okay. Here we are, baby. Ten of Swords. Thank you, Jesus. All those things. So Ten of Swords. Ten of Swords to me is always the ending. It's always this old way of thinking, right? DEAD, on just dead on arrival, right? The 10 is to 10 today. Oh my shit. Okay, so what this is. Okay, 10 today. I was going to show you this. The other card we got is Judgment, which is 10, right? 10. Number 20. So thank you, Spirit, for these beautiful messages. So let's going back to this. It's the ending. It's the ending, right? It's the old way, ending the old way of thinking, an old way of showing up, that old way. And you can see like the emotion, the water, it's okay. This isn't a violent ending. It's just an end. Um, which again, I think goes back to this beautiful idea of Venus being in Scorpio. It doesn't have to be like this is actually, I mean, it's violent, but it's a very peaceful card because it's done. And then with it, we have Judgment, which is saying judgment's been called on the past, you guys. It's time to hear the trumpet, hear Gabriel, and start to show up how we need to show up. Again, it's the weird, corpses coming out of the coffins, right? But it's saying, especially on this 1010 portal, we can start to show up in this new energy, but we've got to look for it. We've got to feel it. We've got to allow it in our lives. We've got to allow it in our hearts, we got to allow it in our minds. So beautiful, beautiful energy. Oh, look who's back. Oh, the Queen of Swords. She wants us to cut out of the drama. Hey, girl. Okay, so she's back too. So what a great way to end this reading. I know it's long, but I appreciate you guys sticking in with it. Um, Really, we got to end this drama, in the drama. Um, we can change our minds, right? This is all part of that metamorphosis of us coming into this new energy, this new way of being. So, okay, friends, thank you for sticking with it. If you had to watch this, maybe stop and start it again. I totally understand. Um, if you guys have any questions, please, go in the comments below. I really appreciate it. I'll probably be back in a few days, definitely for the full moon in Aries, which is going to be highlighting so much beautiful stuff for us. Um, but I want you guys to seriously, I know this sounds cheesy, but keep the faith, right? Jupiter is faith, and it's going back and it retrograding in Gemini is really going to show us actually how strong we are, and how we do show up, right? And we can navigate these things. So, okay, till then, friends, it is Thursday, so you guys have a great weekend. And I will see you soon.